Silver real-time front-end app using gold.
Good evening, all. Welcome to Coffee DBG, and this is the 31st edition of Coffee DBG. And in this session, we are going to discuss about Ruby, and we were discussing the same topic and introductory section a month back. That was just an introductory section. In this session, we will be discussing in detail about Ruby. And before that, I think everyone is aware of Coffee DBG, what Coffee DBG is. So just a brief introduction of Coffee DBG. Actually, this is an open stage that is open to all. So anyone who is interested in technology can join here and you can share your knowledge and get enlightened. So to start with, we'll be going for a Techbites. That is just an technology news update that happened a month back, and followed by the main session. That is why Ruby. That session is led by Jikku Jose of a Kerala Startup Mission. And yeah, so I would like to invite Mr. Aromal to take the Techbites session.
Thanks, Rahul. So I'm Aromal Shashidharan, and I'm working as a senior software engineer in DBG. So I'll be presenting you some Techbites topics. So let's move on to the topics. So the first one is on TechTats. So TechTats is kind of a tattoo that you can stick on your skin. And once done, it will be providing some vital information like heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, and it will regularly notify your caring person to the caring person or using an Android or an iOS app. So, and also it can securely store some information on credit cards so that, can authorize the payments by means of gestures, etc. So for better understanding, we can see a video of that. But exact yeah, I mean, so the exact release date or the price is not yet known, but it will be very less when compared to wearables like smartwatches. So we can go to the next topic. that is on Google Smart Reply. Recently, Google came up with an update for the Inbox app that is called Smart Reply. Using this feature, it will show some suggestions for quick reply for the email conversations. Like, and you don't have to wait for composing the entire reply. It will suggest use some replies, so that you can select on that and can make a quick reply to that. So for this working, what they did is that they will analyze the previous conversations and finally come up with a pattern that's best suitable for that particular conversation. So for this, they use AI mechanism, that is artificial intelligence mechanism, and use deep learning. And you can see in the picture, there's a person trying to reply, and he suggested the option for quick reply, which is done with the help of deep learning and with the previous conversations. This set of suggestions will not be same for all conversations. It will be dynamically generated by AI. So that's with Google Smart Reply. And we can now see the topic on blogs. Blogs are highly customizable smartwatches that you can compose by your own. Like, it contains different blocks or modules. You can decide by your own. Like, for example, if you want to combine a block like a GPS or a camera or an extra battery, or for example sensors like motion and thermostat sensors, you can just combine the blocks and make up the smartwatch. That's a usefulness of blocks. And let's see a video of the blocks now. From the live site itself. It's like it's called as codeblocks.com, and you can visit the site and can pre-order the same with around $300, I think. And the final topic on Techbites is BlackBerry Pro. The BlackBerry guys came up with a device that fully runs on Android, and it was released in US last month for around $700. And in India, we can expect this month for around 45 to 55K. And it has some specifications of 18 megapixel of camera and Intel RAM of 3 GB, and it is powered by an octa-core Snapdragon processor, and it's an Intel memory of 32 GB, and it can support up to 200 GB of micro SD card. And one common thing that BlackBerry maintained is that in BlackBerry OS and Android is that the communication hub app. The communication hub means that it is an app by which we can read or organize the different conversations happening in mails, SMS, or BlackBerry messages, and the calendar events, etc. So for another peculiar feature is that like it has a sliding keyboard which is highly touch sensitive, and you can simply slide the keyboard to control gestures of the screen. Like you can slide up and down or left and right using the keyboard itself. So you can understand by seeing the video. now invite Mr. Jikku Jose to handle a session on Ruby. Yeah, I mean, of course, after Apple.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. So my name is Jikku Jose. I'm running a startup here at Kerala Startups. My company's name is called Qucentis, and this is a talk on Ruby. Basically, it's actually a talk that is actually piggybacking on what was taken a couple of months back. That was sort of like an introduction to Ruby. So I wanted to take a talk where philosophy and the design goals were stressed out, but I was suggested that we needed a little more so that people will be a little more interested, something a little more hands-on, so that people can actually see something about the language in practice rather than much theory that is being discussed. So I have added that, but I'm not. This is the first time I'm taking a talk, so I'm not sure whether I can manage the time and the flow of information properly. So please bear with me. I hope I will be able to. I'm going to be comprehensible. So so I'm starting off. So there are two things that I really want to talk about in this whole talk, and one is the design goal of Ruby, and one is about community. I think the core reasons why I would suggest Ruby to someone is actually in these two. So I think there are some Ruby developers in this group. Can you please raise your hands? Okay. So I have a question. What is the design goal of Ruby? Yeah, exactly. That is exactly the reason of the design. That's the design goal of Ruby. That is actually what makes the language what it is. So there are development goals for anything and everything, and having a development goal like maximizing developer happiness is a very strange but yet very true goal. It can only be understood by actually using the language, but this is something that we as developers should be knowing, because of the reason a language is being developed for the developer. That is something that is actually a very mighty goal if you just take a look at the other languages that are out there. So I believe you have to take a deeper look into why this is so. I don't have much time. I'm moving on. I could have explained so much things about how the language was designed. For example, the Unix philosophy was used significantly into this. So the principle of least astonishment, that is the basic principle by which the language was designed. You won't be shocked to see that how is this thing working on Ruby? That doesn't happen. So most of the things are very intuitive, and this is the reason for it. There is a design goal that is binding throughout the language. So next thing about community is based on this one acronym. This is true to the community from the point when I started using Ruby 2.5 years ago. So at that point, there is a reason why I was drawn into this community, and this acronym sums up most of what the community is standing for. Does any Ruby developer know what this stands for?
That's just nice. So we are nice.
Exactly. So this is the meaning of that acronym. So Max is the guy who actually created the Ruby language. So he is a very approachable, nice person. It's like it's very real. You can actually see his talks and everywhere. He's very friendly and very warm person. So this nature has been passed on to the community. It sounds very funny, but the point is it's real. Every single person in the community seems to be very helpful and very supportive, and everyone wants to actually help each other. And this sort of community is there in this language rather than with most other language communities. And one more thing I have to add, but I am skipping. The reason why I am skipping is these are the advantages of Ruby that I want to actually talk about, but it's not fair to talk because it's actually coming from dynamic language world. It is true for probably almost all dynamic languages like JavaScript or Python or anything for that matter. So I shouldn't be talking about these advantages as the speciality of Ruby. So I'm just going through these sort of advantages. You can actually take a look at it, but these are not the things that I'm going to go into detail because these are probably the advantages of a dynamic language. So if you have just taken a look at it, I'm moving on to the next slide. So this winds up one part of the talk, which actually dealt about design goals and philosophy, the community and things like that. I know it was quite boring because it was predominantly theory, but I think I had to do this because this is what keeps Ruby together. So now I have to explain, there can't be a Ruby talk without explaining about Rails. Most probably people, when I tell them I am working in Ruby, they ask me, oh yeah, Ruby on Rails, right? But very frankly, I haven't touched Rails. But the reason why it happens is 95% of all jobs in Ruby is because of this framework. It's actually a killer framework that was created in 2004 by a guy called DHS, who is known as DHS. And he is now a part of a company called 37 Signals, which by far is one of the best companies to work in the world. Around 40 or 50 people work there. Everyone work like a commune. It's a really good place to work, and they have multiple products that you might have heard of. One of the products is called Basecamp. It's valued at $100 million, and they're not interested to sell it. It's not the reason for their existence, and it's actually a very their work ethics and things like that. It's a very warm place to work. So they created Rails for building their products, and it was extremely successful, very intuitive, and extremely productive. That's the reason why many people started using it. So I'm not going into the nuts and bolts of Rails because this is not a talk on Rails. But if at all, if someone is actually considering to move into Ruby, this is the easiest way to get a job. So I have to take spend one slide to explain it. So this is probably one of the reasons why Ruby is pretty popular. So versatility, I hope you know what it means. It's basically the ability to adapt into many things rather than being very specific into something. So I will explain why Ruby is versatile. For example, if you take PHP for instance, that was a language created for web applications. It is because it has constructs inbuilt into it for creating web applications. For example, the response and request objects are inside the language itself. So it's more of a specific language. So Ruby is not like that. It's actually a generic language that can do many more things than that. So I want to show you a few code snippets from multiple projects that use Ruby. So one of the things is Ruby Motion. I'm not sure how many of you know about Ruby Motion. You can actually create high performance native applications in iOS and Android using Ruby. And if you can actually attempt to read what this code is trying to do, it's very intuitive. This code can generate an iOS application that's completely that has a title that's called home and has a background color of so on and so forth. This is probably not a very good example. It's a contrived example, but I didn't get time to go in and find a better example to explain the value of how simple this thing is. Anyway, if you know Ruby, the point is building an iOS application is going to be pretty easy, and there's this toolchain enables you to do this. This is called Ruby Motion. It's a paid one. There is a starter version that is free. Now there is a project called Shoes. Shoes is something that was created by a very very prominent developer in Ruby who is now not there in the scene. He is called Y, and this creates applications in the desktop for multiple platforms. If you take a look at this also, it's very intuitive. You are creating 3 buttons, and it's in a stack with a margin of 8. So, and has a background of white. So right now it's in the version 4, and they are going for a rewrite. It's not ready yet. So I just wanted to show that because this is one of the good projects in Ruby. So I would also like to talk about Sinatra, because this is probably by far the easiest way to create a web-based solution. For example, this creates a root in your server by /hi, and hello world will be printed out if you just visit that. This is the easiest way to do this. I probably should be doing some code right now to show this happen, because I think many people are nearly asleep. So I will show you a little bit of code to have this working. So yeah, I'm putting the mic down. Okay, I need the mic. So I'll just show you. I'm going to create a simple file, a Ruby file, which is going to be, can you, yeah. Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Am I audible? Okay, so I'm going to create a simple hello world Ruby app that exposes a simple root. So this is all that is. I made a mistake. I have to quit this. So okay. So this is a simple file that has that is depending upon a gem, that is a package in Ruby land. Something I'm not sure what Python's package is, or I think PHP's packages are called far or something like that. I don't know. So basically, it's actually a package of in Ruby. You're actually requiring it, and just in just 3 lines, you're able to create a web server. I will just show you how this will work. This web server is spawned, and it's available in localhost at 4567, and it will give hello world when you go into /hey. I'll just show you. Where is this? Okay. So this is it. So the point is, it's extreme, and you see how that request actually came in. It's a get request that came in like that. The point is, it's extremely simple like this. You can actually create, you can stack this sort of applications together and create a bigger web app that actually has extremely small, tiny parts that does one thing and does it well. It's actually the Unix philosophy, and I'm not sure exactly this is an ideal example to show that, but it does work. So yeah, back to the slides. So Sinatra is that. I will show you another one. Imagine you might have all worked on many CLI applications in your day-to-day development workflow. So imagine you want to create an application, a CLI application that sends an SMS to this specific number like this, whatever. So this would be cool because the reason is it's extremely simple and it just does one thing. And to do this, the code might be like this. This is one of the gems that I created. I don't think it works right now because the API must have changed because it's nearly an year or so. Forget about this part. This is actually the setup that actually registers to the service called way to SMS. Many people might have used this. It's a free SMS service where you can actually send SMS to another number for free. You use your username and password here and specify the service. This is the only code that you have to think about. So what this is, ARGV is actually you are taking in the command line arguments, and you're taking the first one, that is by ARGV1 and ARGV dot last. So basically what you are doing is you're just taking it and assigning it to an object, creating an object and creating a queue out of it, and you're sending it. The point is, I wanted to show you the value of very simple DSLs where you don't even have to explain someone who doesn't, nobody needs to even know programming to understand that this sends an SMS. So such kind of beautiful API can be created using Ruby, and that is one of the reasons why it is being used in many projects, because creating DSLs is very difficult in other languages. It's very easy in Ruby. And this is one of the projects that I'm personally very interested at. If you take, has someone worked in jQuery in this group? Yeah. If you just take a look at it, this is jQuery that is represented in Ruby, idiomatic Ruby. So basically this is Opal. It's a project called Opal. It has created a Ruby transpiler where Ruby code will be converted into equivalent JavaScript. The value for these kind of projects is you only learn a single language and you are able to deploy it into iOS, Android, web, now in front end and in back end also. So probably you are covering the entire space by this. So this also concludes one more of the verticals that I wanted to clear. This is where almost all the things where Ruby is currently used. Now, the next topic, I have to address this because there are so many people who tell that Ruby has so many problems, and it is true also. So I wanted to explain why you should not use Ruby. Let's see what are the main problems that the language suffers. Most of these problems are actually attributed to most of the dynamic languages that are already there. For example, Python might suffer many of the problems. Even JavaScript might suffer, and even other dynamic languages will also suffer many of these problems. But of course, we have to acknowledge the fact that most of these problems are Ruby's problems. We have to acknowledge this fact. So still, if there are so many problems, why are we still using Ruby? So there is a reason why none of those things that I showed you in the previous screen matters. The reason is this. We are trading off all those negative things to productivity. The speed with which we can actually create applications in Ruby actually strips off all those problems that were shown previously because of the speed at which you can develop. This is the reason why so many companies, so many new startups use Ruby. There are other things that are new players are coming up, but of course, Ruby was, for example, Twitter uses Ruby, GitHub uses Ruby, and many very advanced startups use Ruby. This is one of the reasons of, and productivity is the fundamental reason. So does that mean we have to sacrifice all those problems? What if there is another way wherein we can still use something that looks like Ruby, but has all the problems that are solved? So before going into that, I would like to explain two problems that happened in the history of languages. One was the problem with Perl. Perl is right now trying to move into the next version. So the problem with moving into the next version is it took so many years for the developer to actually create the next version because there were so many breaking changes. Why are there so many breaking changes? The simple reason is so many new things happened. So many new technologies happened, and we want to integrate that into a new language. But the problem is, if you change all those things, that was not, the previous version will not be able to accommodate all those features into it. So what happened was, this guy started to create a new version. I think it's called Perl 6. This guy was trying for, I think, more than 8 or 9 years, and still he hasn't completed this, because all these new things, Perl 5 people will not be able to use it, because there are breaking changes that is going to crush the people who actually invested time to learn this. So in a similar way, am I audible? Okay. In a similar way, Python also had the same problem. Python 2.7 is probably the most popular version, and a new version came out. So many people say that it's a really good version with so many good features. But unfortunately, what works in Python 2.7 may not work in Python 3.0. What the consequence is, even after like I have used Python once in a like for some small things, even then, to install an application recently, I had to go in through a lot of hoops, because there are multiple package managers. One is called pip 2.7, one is called pip 3.0. So this sort of things happen. So we can't just do certain things in a way in which by the backward compatibility can be maintained. What will you do? Just think about this. You are using either one of Mac or Linux or Windows. Tomorrow a new version is released where your previous applications will not work. Will you accept it? Irrespective of how much ever performance or how much ever value that new OS is bringing into the table, backward compatibility is a serious problem. So what can we do about this? So most of the dynamic languages took the route saying that these are the problems, we have to accept it, we have to move on, there is no way to fix this, the productivity gain is enough. But a few folks in Ruby were not happy with it, and they created certain things. So that is what I want to talk about next. What is beyond Ruby? It's not these languages are not Ruby, but it actually provides a solution or an answer to most of the problems that I discussed about from dynamic languages. So this is a quote that I recently stumbled upon, and I really liked it. These people tried to imitate Ruby in a way where it looks like the new language looks a lot like Ruby, so that you don't have to learn much more, but many features that are there in like languages like C or like functional languages like Clojure was introduced into this with almost similar syntax, so that your cognitive load to learn something new is less. So I will just show you 3 of such projects that are actually path breaking. It's actually in the process of, it's not even 1.0, it's actually in the process of development. One of the projects is called mruby. Mruby is probably very close to Ruby. It's almost Ruby. It's actually a project by the creator of Ruby itself, Mats. What mruby promises or puts into the table is something like this. It's an embedded scripting language where a huge program can actually use the mruby interpreter, so that you can actually code in Ruby to add additional functionality. It might sound very weird to say this, but you have been using such things very extensively. For example, how many of you use Sublime? How many of you use Atom? Okay, so you use Atom or Sublime. How many packages or plugins do you use in them? Many, I believe. So many. All these things were extended using JavaScript. The reason was there is a JavaScript engine, probably I think it's V8, that is running at the back end that helps to convert that JavaScript functionality into whatever things. For example, it's syntax highlighting or code linting, whatever that you are using. It's possible because there was a JavaScript plugin system that was inside that. So if when mruby comes out, every single program can actually integrate this, and Ruby developers can actually code and extend plugin functionality using this project. So this is a significant project. It is coming up. It's still in development, but it can actually change. For example, the best scripting language for things like this, where embedded scripting works, is Lua. I am not sure how many of you are aware of that. Have someone used Cordova? No. So basically Lua is a scripting language where you can actually, it's very lightweight. It's created by some Brazilian university where they actually created this language so that you can, it's so lightweight that you can actually embed this, the whole interpreter inside a bigger program, and you can code using that. So basically things like 3D Max, for instance, it's completely, the complete shader pipeline, everything is done in C and C++. If you want to extend it, if you tell a developer write a code in C or C++, probably nobody will bother. So a language that is so simple is required. So that is why Lua or things like that were used in things like that. Even for VLC, I believe, I have been using a plugin where subtitle will be automatically downloaded. It's a simple script in Lua. The reason why Lua was chosen over there because it was embeddable. So that's mRuby. Another language I really think has a lot of potential is Crystal. So all the top developers talk about belittle the languages, belittle the dynamic languages, saying that at the end of the day, its performance is pathetic, and it's true. Python, Ruby, or JavaScript or whatever, for computationally intensive tasks, it's very lame. It's a real fact that the reason why it's lame is because so many features, so many abstractions are built on top of it to make the language extremely usable. For example, if you want a dictionary, or let's say a hash as it's called in Ruby, or if you want an array or things like that, sorting and everything like that, it's built into the language so that the standard library is enough to do a lot of things. So what Crystal tries to do is, they are breaking so many things in Ruby, but most of the things are maintained, and it will look a lot like Ruby, and you're going to have a C-like performance language using the same syntax. The value is performance, and extremely computationally intensive tasks can be done using a syntax that is much more approachable than C-like languages. So the next one, this is probably by far the most important slide, even though it is not at all linked with Ruby. It's a language that is very new, and I really want every one of you to actually take a look at this language. Even if you don't like this language, there is a keyword that I want you to stress. This is going to be the future of programming. This is the opinion of many developers. Functional language is going to actually change the paradigm in which we are actually coding. There are so many reasons for it. Time doesn't permit me to go in and explain why functional language is so important. I think it is better for you to read up. And what Elixir does is, it uses Ruby-like syntax to abstract so many unfriendly syntax of Erlang. Erlang was a language, I would like to talk about Erlang. Erlang was a language that was created long back for a very unique reason. These telecom companies had a requirement. See, when you actually implement something in telecom, you can't say, okay, I have an update to make. Switch off the server, we will do the update and come back. You lose the phone calls. It's not possible. You need live plug and play in that. That is, I saw an example in Erlang's talk once. It's something like this. You want to change the carburetor of a car, which is running at 300 km/h. It's something like that for Erlang developers. So, but Erlang is extremely unapproachable because the syntax is very difficult. But if you know Erlang, you're probably in the top-notch developers. So Elixir, what it does is, you are going to use Erlang VM in the backend and create a very approachable language. If you learn Elixir, probably you are going to get a really good, you are going to land up in a very good job in the next 1 to 2 years. It's that significant. So with this, I'm concluding one more part of my topic, and this was also the topic that explained what is beyond Ruby. So learning one language like this has a huge potential because of all these sort of projects that are coming up. So this is one of the graphs that I found that is a little biased. There are so many other metrics that I can, many other language people can say in which other languages looks superior. This is Python, this is JavaScript, this is PHP, this is Go, and this is Ruby. These are the active repositories in GitHub. This actually shows you where the popularity wise Ruby is standing. In reality, it's somewhere in the top 10 languages that are in the world. Its popularity, to be very frank, is actually waning down because of over dependence upon the framework called Rails. Unfortunately, there are so many problems in that framework that is making it a less suitable choice for the latest startups. Many people are going into Elixir or Clojure or functional approaches. So we have an answer already that I have explained. So the popularity is a little waning, but understand that it is in the top 10, even though it is waning down. So this also I am concluding and moving on to the next topic. So this comes to, this is the last portion of the entire talk, where I am attempting to build a small application to show one of the frameworks that is really interesting. I would like to show this framework because many people might have used something like Angular, JS, or React. I think you might have at least heard of it. So Angular or React or Meteor or frameworks like that are attempting to solve one aspect that has been a very difficult thing to do in front end. The aspect is when you change data in the front end, to populate and respond the entire application based on that data is an extremely difficult task. If you actually do it before, if you have done that before Meteor or Angular or all those sort of frameworks actually solve that problem, if you actually try to do it, it was a nightmare. It's that difficult that problem was. So Meteor solved it in a really good way. React is solving it in a different paradigm, but it's a really attractive thing. But all these things, when you solve this, you need to have two things. One is a backend that controls this data and puts it in a model and places that in a database and so on and so forth. And another application, a completely decoupled application, needs to be maintained at the front end so that the data is actually synced and maintained. So Angular has such a thing. I think Meteor is solving it by using reusing the same code in the backend and in the front end. So Volt is a language where you can use Ruby in the backend and in the front end. You code in Ruby in one place and it changes in the backend and in the front end. It's kind of seamless. Since it is going to be a live demo, I'm not sure how many problems might creep in. I might not be able to complete it even though it is a simple thing, but I am attempting this. So please bear with me. So this is just a folder in my system. So I'm just going to create this is like Volt is a gem. We can install if Ruby is installed. I'm not going into the details of installing Ruby because it's a second talk. So if Ruby is installed, installing Volt is as simple as gem install Volt. I have already installed Volt, so I should get a message saying that it's already installed. Yeah, it's already installed. So its version is 0.9.6. It's not even version 1.0, but it's a very significant step forward. That is why I want to explain this. Starting a Volt project is as simple as doing this. So the classic to do is one thing that is, have anyone heard of something called a project called To Do MVC? Yeah, so many have heard. To Do MVC is a project to if for people who haven't who doesn't know what it is. To Do MVC is a project where so many I will just take it otherwise. So it's a project where so many frameworks are tested in parallel to show. Okay, so many projects are tested in parallel to show the effectiveness of it by building exactly the same project. So to do MVC is like there are examples from every single framework out there. So it's a great thing. It's a great example. I think Volt is also there. I don't know. Yeah, no, Volt project is not updated. Anyway, the point is, this actually gives you an idea of how we can create a project like To Do MVC, but it's actually a very stylized project. I want to keep it very minimal. So I'm going to create just an application that adds in a to do and clears all. That's it. So it's basically something like this. It's going to be very simple though. So this is the code that is required to generate a new project. And this creates all the dependent files and installs all the dependencies that are required for it, and the project will be ready. Now, in a project called To Do, the entire project, entire things that we require for building this project is ready. So this is basically what it is. Okay, I can't show you. It's yeah. So this is basically what it is. There is a folder called app wherein all the files that are required for, let's see. Okay, there are so many files. So there are all the files that are required for the app and things like that is there. Gem file is actually a dependency managing file. It's I don't want you to go into the details, but I want to show you how effectively you can actually create this. So from here, I'm trying to do this. Bear with me, there might be delays. Let me see. So for To Do application, there are two dependency. There is something, MongoDB is the default database layer that is being used. So I have to invoke the Mongo daemon to initiate it. So I have initiated it, and I have to start a server. So I have to start the Volt server that is responsible for building, monitoring the entire project and serving as an instance of the application to the browser. So this command does this. Okay. Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry. So I'm making it smaller because of screen real estate. So it's available at, if you see, if it is available at localhost.3000 at 3000. So I'll just show you what it looks like. So this is going to be, okay, this is going to be the default boilerplate that Volt is going to provide us. There are things like about login and things like that, which we are not going to be concerned right now. We are going to take this project, delete out the things that we don't want, clear out the views, and create a simple to do here, just to show you how the front end and back end works together. So I'm coming back into the code. Okay. So this is the code. So first what I'll do is I'm going to clear out the unnecessary noise in this. For example, the top navigation and things like that, which is not required and not essential for this, and make it a little simple. So what we are going to do is we are going to take up the main controller's view file. That should be at, where is it? Yeah. So this is where the main template is going to be. From here, the navigation is just this. So I'm going to delete that and I will show you how it updates. So I just saved it. It automatically updates and this happens. So I'm going to change it. Probably I will just change it, make it to do. I'll show you. It updates on real time. So right now I am changing backend code and front end code, it's some completely seamless. So when I change back end or front end code, what happens is it automatically, for example, I just change this. I don't know whether this is front end or back end. It automatically, it's seamless. It just happens to be like a single unit where back and front end distinction is not there, just like in other languages or other frameworks. It's not a property of the language, it's actually the property of the framework. So basically it's there. So this is the layout file. This is the main.layout file that actually generates this whole thing. This is not the thing that we have to change it. We have to change the index file. So coming and going to the index file, this is the index file. So basically the home you see over here is this. So if I'm going to change this, let's say to this, eh?
H1.
Oh, okay, sorry. It's the title of the, it's, no, you can't. This is the thing that changed. This is the title of the page. That's right. Okay. So if I'm going to change this, so it changes. So this is the page where you are going to make the changes and the view aspects of the project where things are going to happen. For example, you are going to build the to do over here. This colon title and colon body is a construct that is similar to React's construct where new things can be added, new let's say snippets of code. For example, body is something that is stored somewhere else, which will have so many, for example, the bootstraps layout or the container things and things like that will be there. We don't have to bother about this. All the things will be included just by including body, and title will add in all those meta information about what libraries to be added and all those things that are there in head of the page. All those things will be auto added over there. So right now I'm going to try this out. So bear with me. This is going to be a little difficult. So I want to create a list group. This is a snippet that I had created. This is based on Bootstrap. I'm not an expert in Bootstrap, but I just created this snippet because I can't remember this. So this is a snippet. So just like in Ruby or no, just like in Python or any other language, what we are going to do is we are going to embed Ruby over here to iterate over that list item. So basically it's like this. How many of you have used or does know what mustache templates are? Okay, so this the default templating system for this is mustache. So I'm using that. So I'm going to do this. Okay. Rakesh is telling that I had to do something else before showing this. So I forgot that step. So I'm going to go back one step and explain that. We had to create something called a model, because every this to do will have something called a task model, wherein all the tasks are actually modeled over there. For example, imagine the task will have time, date, created time, all those things can be added over there. But for the simplicity of for this project, we are going to just create the name field alone. So I believe it is somewhere over here. I'm going to create a file. This is a command for that in models. So let's create a model called task. And since many of you are not Ruby developers, I'm going to create a Ruby class that inherits from something called Volt model. It will have many DSL things where it will specify that this is a model and this is a field inside it. So to create the way to create a class in Ruby is this. This is it. This is a class. To inherit from Volt, it is something like this. What that double colon shows is Volt is the a top level module, and this is a namespace, and model is inside it. So that's it. And I'm going to create a one of the attributes called field. Field will be name because that is the attribute of that of what we are creating. Only one attribute is going to be created, and it's of the property called string. And yeah, that's it. This is the only thing that is required for the Volt model. So I'm coming back to the previous one wherein we created that small snippet, which is going to create that UL and LI, which is obviously that class. I don't know what it means. It's actually from, I just stole it from the guides of Bootstrap. So I'm going to create a simple iterator wherein Ruby code can be used, where so store is actually the it's like kind of a repository where all the data models are held. So you might be thinking where we got this tasks. I didn't do anything. I didn't talk anything about tasks. The reason is when you create a model, you typically, there is a constraint that you have to create it as a singular noun. The reason why it is convention over configuration. It's actually a strategy that is used in Rails. So when you create something like a model called tasks is actually a holder where so many tasks can be held. So that will be automatically created. We have tasks already there. So I'm going to iterate over tasks and take individual tasks and present it in between that li. That is what I'm going to do next. So this is the way I have to do the iteration in Ruby. And I am actually starting a block by that. I will show you what that is. 1 minute. So this mustache template, what it does is you are actually creating a loop where every single task in that task group will be iterated over, and this thing is going to be generated. Right now we don't have anything. I'm going to put something over here. Obviously it is called task and its name. So what happened, why I took name is its task is an object and name is the field that I created previously. So this should ideally give you a listing of all these tasks that are already there. But you will not see anything because there are no tasks. So it is possible that we can add a task through backend. I can show you that. So this is a way in which we can actually start a console where the Volt's backend can be actually accessible through REPL. Do you know, how many of you know what a REPL is? REPEL. REPL is read, eval, print loop. It's a simple program. There are REPL for most all dynamic languages. What it does is you can test code there itself. For example, things like this. This is my name. It's a string. If you do, this happens. So I can test what happens in the code just like this. I don't have to create a new page and create this things like this. So imagine previously I talked about iteration. So I just wanted to show you something about this. For example, so this is a construct where I can actually create an array using this. I can do a square bracket and put quotes over there, but it's extremely time consuming. So this is a simple way in which I can create an array. So, and there is another thing called, let's say, this is an array of names. Let's call it, and this underscore operator is actually a simple construct in the REPL that says that take the value from the previous operation and assign it to this thing. That's it. So basically, names will now have this. So I forgot to put names previously. It doesn't matter. I have this. So I want to print, let's say, Jikku is a developer, or for all of us are developers. So I just want to print that. So a simple loop I'm going to show you. So I'm going to do an each, and this is a simple block where each time this method runs, this block is going to be executed. And puts is something like print. So I'm going to do this. What happens is every single name in that array will be taken and this block will be run. So this is what happens. So imagine, okay, I didn't, I took, yeah, so I hope this is easy to understand. So imagine I want to do something like, I told you we want to, let's say, print something more. So basically, I will do this. This is array interpolation. There's nothing great about this. So what happens is, it happens like this. So basically what I want you to know is, if you have an array called names, it has a method called each. Each gives you an object called an enumerator. What an enumerator does is, it takes in the array, and if you provide a block, it takes in individual parameters from the array and executes the block corresponding to it. That's it. So coming back to it, we had something called store. So store is something like this. This is from, now I'm not in Ruby, I'm going back to the Vault. If you see, it's the Vault console. Ruby, normal Ruby works there. That's why I explained all these things. So the variable store holds something like store root. It's actually a complicated project object inside it, which has so many things. We don't have to bother about it. So I'm going to call something like this. We don't know what this is. It shows you an empty array model. What it does is, it is actually created because there was something called task that I created. So I'm going to add. So yeah, before that I'll show you something. This is an empty array. If I want to add something to it, I can do this. It's as simple as that. So as I told you, underscore has the previous one. If I do this, it will have this. So that shovel operator, as it is called, is something that will add in a new object inside an array. So I told you what store is. No, what store is and what tasks are. Task is an array model. It has exactly this thing, shovel operator. What can we add into that? It is actually a collection of the task objects that we had created. So we need to create a new task object. So new task object, there are multiple ways to create it. What the recommended way that they did is like this. You can place the field names through what is it called, variable, I forgot its name. This is same thing, it's available in Objective-C. No, that variable labeling. What is it called? Does anyone? So basically, when you call a method, this method's variable name will have a label associated with it. This, what is it? Not property. For example, when you do it in iOS, it's very prominent. For example, when you actually call in, so in C++, it's like this. You want to print. It's not tuple. For example, I'll just show you, give you an example. In C++, most of you might know basic C++. You want to do a method that gives you name. For example, Jikku is a developer. So the name and the designation should be passed as a argument. How will you do it? New string within the bracket, name, comma, name, comma, designation, whatever. But here what we will do is, we will give a label to that variable. The reason is, there is no reason. We can you simply pass that field name alone. But the reason is, just think about this. When you do this, just read this. It's extremely readable. Because we know that buy milk. Okay, so buy, it's a task. So buy milk is the name that is for the task. So imagine there was something like date. So we can do something like this and say the date. So things are extremely readable. It's very it's self-documenting. In Ruby, there is something like, if you have to document something, that means your code is bad. So we have this sort of philosophy. That's why I had to explain this. So basically, even a new person can see this and see that this a method is being called. Nobody knows what new is. Anyway, it's a constructor. So when I say it's a constructor and name colon buy milk, you probably can guess that name, the field name is name, and it's being assigned to it. So when I do this, what happens is, the tasks collection got a new task with the name buy milk. Okay, I did this in console and this happened. Now I'm going to build a system where I'm going to create a simple text field wherein I can add in over there. In live, it will update over here. Right now, it is already live, but we don't have this solution in the front end. So let me see. Okay, so we need to have something called, I don't know what it was called, input. Yeah, this is a snippet that I created because I can't remember that thing. So basically, this is the bootstrap, whatever markup that is required to make it look a little neat. So a little bit of space. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this is it. What it does is, I will just save it and show you what it does. So it's a label where you have this. So there is no breathing space. I will just add one BR. So it looks a little readable, and I will just change this. So basically you have a new task field wherein you can type over here, but nothing will happen. So I just created this. Ideally what I am trying to do is I'm going to add a task over there and it will populate in that table, in that LI, whatever that is there. So what I'm going to do is, e-submit.
Huh? Two-way binding.
Two-way binding?
Value equal.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So basically there is something called value. So I have to add something called a two-way binding. What two-way binding? I probably if you have used AngularJS or whatever thing, there is something called like a two-way binding. Here it is extremely simple. Just like store, there is something else called page. Page is a little more temporary. For example, when you are there in the page, you have these variables. If you close it, if it is in cookie, it will be there. Otherwise, it will be gone. So basically, you want some temporary things to do. It will be stored in page. So basically, I will put something called page, and I will put new task. So basically, what I did right now, just like in store, in page repository, I placed a new variable called underscore new task. That's it. Nothing happens over here. If you edit it, nothing happens. Okay. So what happens is, what we did so far is we created that, and we created something called underscore new task, wherein wherein this is actually placeholder. Whatever that is being that is being entered over there is being put live into that. You might not believe me, but I will show you how it's done. So if I put let's go over there, and also I will put a BR. If I do this, it updated. It's as simple as this. To add real-time binding, you did this. Now, since it is page, it is only for the page. If you had done it for store, what it essentially does is, it will sync automatically into the backend and also here. Now, unfortunately, I was not able to set up my server for this. Otherwise, what I would have done right now is, I would have given you a link for each of you where you can see that the data that is being entered right now is live updated in every single device. This is automatic. You don't have to do anything about it. Just change page to store and it happens. That's all that is there. So we have this. I will just remove this. I just wanted to show you this. So it's back to the normal thing, and we need to create a system to add in this thing. So basically, I have to create a form. Which one? I didn't get you. Can you repeat that? Yeah, it is actually the concept that is built on Ruby for the framework. That's it. For example, what list-group, if you have worked on Bootstrap, is it's not part of CSS. It's built on top of that, exactly like that. So here also I'm cheating. I can't remember this, so I'm just doing this. So it's basically form e-submit is actually the key. So basically, when you do e-submit and a method, if you specify, a method in the controller gets invoked when form gets submitted. It's that simple. So I'm going to place this code. Oh, I'm going to place this code inside this. So basically, what happens is I have an input system that is embedded in a form. Now, whenever I press enter, that form gets submitted, and that submission process is hacked and placed into the method called method. Here, unfortunately, it's named method. We will change it to add task. But right now, if I do that, there is nothing. It might give you an error. Okay, it is not giving an error. It is an error because there is no task like that. So I'm going back and going to give. I'm going to the main controller. Main controller has a lot of boilerplate code just to get us started. So for example, if you wanted to do something like, let's say you wanted to pre-fill that text field, all you had to do is so what happens is that's it. So it's as simple as this. So this is the index method that gets invoked every time the index file is called. So right now what we need to do is we just need to create a method. Method is created like this. Okay, that's it. So what happens? You are getting a callback from that place where that form was submitted. So what is being submitted? We don't have to bother to take the arguments because it's messy. We already have this live thing. It's called page.newTask. Why don't we just add that? It just reduces the pain. So let's add that. So just like what I had did in the REPL, this is the thing. I'm going to add it. It's an array, just as I showed you, a new task. The new task is actually created like this. And we have to give a variable label that is like this. And what is the label? It is page._new_task. That's it. What happens is when this thing happens, a new task is created and it's shoved inside tasks. What happens with the task? It is live updated in that. I don't know whether it works. Let's see. Okay, as simple as this. But we have a problem. There is a user experience problem. That thing didn't go off. That field was not cleared. How will you do that? Can anyone who is not a Ruby developer tell me? That will be my success. Can any non-Ruby developer say that? Because it's very simple. If you think about it, you have a live updating variable in your hand. You took that value, placed it in a task, and shoved it inside an array. What can you do about that? Do you need that variable anymore? You don't. What if we place an empty string on that? Won't it solve it? Is it hard? Okay, let's do that. Page.newTask. Okay, what will happen? That pre-filling thing didn't go off. Let's remove that. No, let's pre-fill it with an empty thing. This is a violation in Ruby, I have to say, but I am doing this. He might actually hit me, or he might hit me. The reason it's a violation is this is against a principle called dry. I'm not sure whether you have heard it. Dry means do not repeat yourself. I use the same code twice. In Ruby, it's an extremely significant violation because Ruby developers tend to be craftsmen. They claim that they are extremely good programmers, so they have this tendency to be extremely specific about how they do things. What typically need to be done is I need to create another method where this thing is done called reset fields and call it with both sides. I'm not doing that for right now, so I'm going to update it. Let's see what happens. It's gone. So it worked. Sometimes this might not work, and I wanted to tell you, this is the framework that we use to create the hackathon project. Creating something like this, the value of this is, this thing in my from my computer I can connect 800 to 900 clients in real time, and this thing will happen like that. For example, you are creating a simple tic tac game. You can live update and show the score for 900 people, 900 clients, just like this. Mongo works, it scales, it's perfect for that. So right now it is in 9.0.9.16. It's very immature, like it's not right time to go in, but I am really passionate about this. That's why I went into this. If you can wait a few more months and learn Ruby by that time, this is going to be a path-breaking framework, because you just need to learn one single language for backend, frontend, and you can use that same code to create iOS applications and Android applications. That's the value of this. This is my case. This is the reason why I'm saying that you should give it a try. If you feel, if someone of you feel who are not a Ruby developer and feel that they are interested by some means, I would like to show you a resource. I had shown this resource previously also. This site is called Code Academy, and there is a Ruby track which is completely free. It takes 9 hours. Just think about 9 hours. If you spend 15 minutes every day, in 30 days, you will be pretty good at Ruby. And this is an interactive Ruby thing. The prerequisites is not even like, no, you don't even have to be a developer to learn this. It's that simple. So if you are a developer, you can just brush through this, and like you can reach a really good position very easily. It's an interactive thing. You can code over there. You don't have to install anything. Code over there, work. Code over there, work. It's a little heavy application, so I'm not showing you right now because it might not load. So basically you will have the loop. You can do it right now and see it update live. So this is the thing that I wanted to show you. If you cross this, there are other resources, but by that time, if by any means, if someone got interested and is completing this, I would like to show you the next resource. That is a physical one. It's called CRUG, Kerala Ruby User Group. We started it a couple of weeks back. Me and KP started that, but he unfortunately got into an accident. He couldn't come. Surprising number of people actually turned up. So many people are passionate about this. I'm very happy about that. And if you are interested, if you even if you don't learn anything, you can just come in. You can see the community, and you can see and understand how why I told you about Minswan. Maths is nice, so we are nice. That philosophy you can see over there. It's I was really happy to see that a person came from Cochin. There is a very live, active community in Cochin. He came and gave us a talk. So to be fair, he was here. That might be the reason he came. But the point is, he took the time, pain to come and attend and help the event. So if anyone by any chance is interested, the next CRUG is planned on December the 6th at Kerala Startup Mission at 5:30. You can drop in. Everyone is welcome. No need to know any Ruby. You can see the community. So I think that concludes whatever I wanted to tell. I'm the co-founder of Qucentis once again. This is my site, and this talk will be hosted in jikkujose.in/talks by tonight. And that concludes it. If you have any questions, you can ask. Yeah, please.
No questions in between.
Yeah, a couple of questions. One,
Sure.
you when you install that Vault, right? You install on top of Ruby as a gem.
Yes.
So that took care of talking to MongoDB automatically.
Everything. All there are only if you have Ruby in your system. Imagine you have Ruby in your system. The only two things that you have to install to try this out is one is Volt. The command for that is gem install Volt. One. Number two, you have to install Mongo. For Linux, I'm not very sure. For Mac, it is brew install Mongo. Done.
When you did the store dot task, so it was saving in MongoDB directly, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have to write specific APIs to insert, update, delete everything.
You didn't. It was a fresh project. I didn't do anything.
So everything was taken care by Vault, or was it?
Everything was taken care by Volt. The reason why I chose Volt to show this, most of the things that I showed you is possible in Meteor or any other languages. Most of.
And then
Yeah.
So Volt also took care of propagating the model on the back end and also on the front end, so that there was a seamless.
And also across any other client that will be connected to it.
Okay. And then you said there was a three-way reactivity, right? That is, if you update on the MongoDB, it would be real-time updated on the.
I showed you. For example, this is the demo that we had. Okay. If I do something like, let's say.
Can you parallelly open another browser and show that it's getting updated in real time?
I will show you. A different browser you want. Okay. 1 minute. So these are two tabs. These both the tabs. For example, I will add something here.
Can you show together parallel?
Okay. 1 minute. I'll just.
Okay. So this more like a binding is done from the Vault, is it? And is it using underlying some socket layer?
Everything is abstracted off. This is the value of Ruby, or if you use in Ruby land, this is kind of like given. For example, everything that happens in the backend, it's actually done using many layers. For example, it's done using JavaScript. In fact, in reality, there is something called Opal, which actually converts the Ruby code that we just created into JavaScript in real time and does all these kind of things. So what happens is you have a single solution to your cognitive load reduces. You can completely focus on this application. For example, while this application was created, like we just tried this demo today at 2 o'clock after lunch because we didn't have time. So we had time to actually improve its looks. It was looking like a pathetic LI was happening. I didn't know Bootstrap much. I just because the reason why I was able to do that is I have time for that, because I don't have to bother about the how this binding works, or what the socket is there, or what Mongo is there, what the dictionary is there.
Maybe
Yeah.
you can probably show the page source of this.
Yes, sure.
This will be completely generated by the Vault.
Completely generated. We will.
Page source of this.
Yeah, I'll show you. How can I pull this out?
Essentially, check out the JavaScripts which are included.
Oh, you want to see the JavaScript? Yeah, 1 minute.
Because I believe you probably would have written 10 lines of code, but the Vault may be inserted.
It's extremely extremely distributed right now because it's in development mode. Even production mode, this becomes extremely tiny. Everything will be minified and will be extremely performant. Right now, for extreme, like it's raw. For example, there is another reason why it's raw. I hope you have someone know. Some of you might know what source maps is. Yeah. So for source maps, what happens is we need it to be non-minified so that you can actually jump into the exact line where the problem happens. So that is the reason why it's non-minified at this point. In production, everything will be compressed into a single thing and it will be extremely efficient. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Anybody, any more questions? Yeah. Okay. The people are asking why. Okay. I forgot to tell one thing. This is a special class of framework called isomorphic frameworks. Isomorphic framework is something where front end and back end is seamless. You don't have a difference like this is front end code, this is back end code. Everything is seamless. For example, did you see anything like I did for back end or front end? Nothing is there. You just went into the view or you went into the controller, did everything that was required, and it just starts working. So isomorphic is that. And there is one more thing that is not pertaining to this, but since I mentioned isomorphic, I must say that page rendering happens at the server. That is a reason for performance. So SPA, have you heard of SPA? Single page applications. So see, single page applications looks really good on theory because you have a project that is completely front end and you're connecting it to the back end using REST API. The problem with that is to have the initial thing to like to be visible, this two things needs to work together and that rendering should happen. So the performance actually reduces. So what isomorphic can do is the entire thing can be generated at the back end and this generated page is being showed to us. So in the first first byte, when the first page loads itself, the entire thing will be completely functional rather than certain applications being completely stuck in the beginning and data will be loading. That will not happen. So this is an isomorphic and then the latest one. And to answer KP's question, what is the difference between Meteor and Volt is Meteor might be better. Meteor might be superior. Meteor has much higher funding and much more developers. But I still don't think you should be using Meteor if you are a Ruby developer because you have zero cognitive load when you use this. There is no need to switch multiple languages when you think about this. So controller code, view code, everything is exactly the same thing. So you don't even know, when you work on this, we completely forgot that you're working in the back end or you're working in the front end. So you're adding a simple directive to add in Google Maps and live. Oh, we need live. Okay, we'll do this. I forgot whether it was added in the back end or the front end. It just works. So this is the power. It's actually reducing the cognitive load. That is the value because it's an extremely scarce commodity right now. If you have that, you will be able to create better applications. Just like I told you, nobody will bother to actually create the UI better in this small demo. But the reason why we were able to do that irrespective of the time is because we had enough free time. There is nothing to do in the backend just to test it. So that's the reason why it's effective. I'm not considering anyone to use Volt tomorrow, but if you are interested in Ruby, I think it's better to actually check out something because it's quite valuable.
Yeah. Why I was surprised because we use Volt templating in PHP.
No, that is completely different. I mean,
when you said Volt itself, I was like, okay, another templating, but it is almost like what Meteor does, right?
It is Meteor. It is what Meteor is doing. But the point is, you have less cognitive load if you know Ruby beforehand. Socket.io is being used, I believe. I'm not very sure about that. Okay, protocol might be different. I'm not very sure about that. I'm not 100% sure about that, but this is the reason. I think you read about it. Meteor has the difference between, yeah, that is, I told you. Some people were asking in the Volt channel, to the developers. No, what he told me some months back was the main developer of Volt was asked the question, what is the difference between Volt and Meteor? Both seem to be doing exactly the same thing. Why do you want a new thing? So he was telling, yeah, it is doing exactly the same thing. It is probably doing something more. It is not even 1.0, but the value is cognitive load. That is the most precious thing. For example, what is more valuable? Getting making a highly paid developer take 3 hours more, or do you want that developer to concentrate more on the actual app idea? For example, I did this, you didn't like it, I can throw this off and start again at minimal cost. So that is the that prototyping speed, that was actually the promise of Rails also. This is actually making it even more faster. I will show you one thing. This is work.com. I added this with the slides, but I don't think people will have notices. This is the promise. It is shockingly fast. I am not very good at it. That's why it took this much time. Otherwise, it would be serious shock to see people do applications on this. So if someone knows Bootstrap or something like that and knows Volt like really good, he will be able to complete an application in like really good functional thing in like hours. It's probably you can't beat it in productivity. There are so many issues. Like for example, while we were building the hackathon project, there was no support for Postgres or things like that. This came last week. It's that live community, and I would like to show you the community also. Yeah, Gitter community is seriously good. So yeah, this is the whole community. 695 people are there. I think around 20-30% of that are active. I didn't check this for like 2 days. Around 200-300 new things came up, and people are really active, and people are really passionate into this. So these are the like, this is like, if you see this, like 9.7 is they're expecting this. Like this is, it's that new and that life. So it's a good thing to be testing out. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to go and create applications tomorrow, but if you know Ruby, there are so many things like this coming up. For example, even for Crystal, I wanted to show, I didn't get time to actually include some examples from Crystal. This is you know, as performant as C. This is serious value if you actually do this. For example, just take a look at this code. This is all you need to create a server. So if you understand Ruby, the value that it brings into the table is extremely valuable. Like for example, I will show you Elixir also. Elixir? I didn't understand. Elixir 2 million WebSockets. Okay, I told you I didn't have time for functional discussing what functional programming is, but I really wanted to tell you that also. So this is the reason why KP was telling about this. 2 million WebSockets is possible. It's not even thinkable in other frameworks. This is possible using Erlang, and we don't have to do Erlang right now because Elixir is there. So that is a value if you know Ruby, because like a tree, there are so many things that are happening. Like people say it's possible for JavaScript and things like that. It's there. It's definitely there. Node is popular for this reason, that because extremely lightweight threads are possible. That is the reason why Node is popular. If you take that and if you consider Node and Elixir, this is serious. This is 2 million connections. You can like imagine that in Node or anything for that matter. So if you know, see this code, it's highly approachable. If you take a look at Erlang's code, most people will run away. It's that difficult. So this looks much more clean and readable. If you know Ruby beforehand, it looks much similar. So that is the reason, like fault tolerance, just like I told you, when you create a telecom network and say, okay, tomorrow I want to create an update, let's switch it off for 3 hours. It doesn't work. So that is the value of things like this. So if you know Ruby, there are so many things that are coming up that is extremely valuable. This ecosystem is extremely well growing. It's just like in gem install. This is the build tool is called Mix or something like that. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, there is something called IEX. Just like I told you, Repel, where I was showing you this code live. Just like I was showing the code live. It's called IEX. It's an interactive Elixir console where you can actually try out Elixir things. So there is a lot of value in this. So if you're going to take something from this talk, I think the best thing it would be is there is a reason why iOS or iPhone won over Android during the initial phases. Right now, by taking the number of devices, Android is winning. But if you take a look at the amount of money that is being created, iOS is winning hands down. Probably they are taking around 60 or 70% of the market share. There's a reason for that. It's a unitary reason. It's called user experience. User experience is stunningly good in that, and they have tried to, Android has tried to, I'm not saying it's bad, they have tried to incorporate many of these things, but the user experience in Apple devices, even if you don't like them, most people accept that it's really good. So Ruby, I think the best reason that you have to consider Ruby is because of the user experience. It is designed for that reason, for making developer happy. There is no language or framework that claims to do that. So I think it's worth your time if you can take a look at it. So if you have any more questions, I will answer, or else we will wind up. Thank you.
So it was a very short, sweet, and nobody would believe that it was his first session. Is it true? Really? Yes. So I hope that there will be more sessions from Jikku in future on Technova. Okay. So I would like to request Rahul, who is the committee this role, to give a small moment of. Yeah. Okay, I think that's all for this month. Yeah, today.